first question for you is,
Yeah.
what's your name? How old are you?
Cool. My name's Gavin. I'm 24.
My name's Hannah, and I'm 23.
I'm Desmond. I am 20.
My name is Patrick Danasta, and I am 22 years old.
I'm from Ottawa. I live in a fairly old suburb built in like the 70s. So generally the houses were all like either semi-detached or single-family homes. Pretty close to the green belt, like a couple green spaces close to Aviation Parkway, and there's a lot of bike trails and running trails and walking trails. So fairly accessible, like to be outdoors.
So I'm from Pickering, Ontario, which is a suburb of Toronto. It's the most suburb you can get. It's like certain sections that have all the same style houses, and like when you're driving throughout the city, it's not walkable at all. Like different styles of houses, but it's always like the same, like cookie cutter house, and then like a designated area for like big box stores.
I am from Barrie, Ontario. I consider Barrie a feeder town. It's about an hour from Toronto. A lot of the people who live in Barrie directly work in Toronto in single detached houses, not a lot of apartment buildings.
I grew up in Mississauga pretty much from when I was born until going to Carleton. I'd say it's fairly urban. Lots of concrete places, like parking lots and whatnot. So not too many environmental areas, I'd say.
Did you have any like early connections with nature?
Yeah.
Any like special like formative experiences?
Yeah, generally when I was younger, loved being outside, playing in the snow. Would go to my family cottage quite often.
I mean, I had a cottage growing up. I don't have it anymore, but like I definitely experienced like with like digging in dirt and playing with like worms and zebra mussels and like listening to different birds.
Just the usual, I'd say. Like I'd go out with my friends. We'd ride our bikes through like the neighborhood or something. We just go down like a trail. I remember playing a lot with like say insects. Like like we'd pick up like snails or something on like the path, or like watch ants like crawl around.
And my dad grew up camping with his family his whole life, and he brought that passion into how he raised me.
Car camping with my family, I would do that. It would be like a yearly thing that we do every summer.
So I had like a lot of exposure as a kid, but I would say it like went down as I got older.
I've always loved being outside, especially later on. It becomes more tedious and challenging.
Did school help foster any of these like memories that were important to you? Any like nature-related memories?
Not like as much as say just going outside and like experiencing everything for myself.
There was like efforts I could see in school, like outdoor classrooms, but it wasn't really like accessible or able to be implemented in like the coursework, because usually it was just like several rocks in a circle.
Not really early on. I found that my elementary school was kind of lackluster in that area, maybe just the time. But later on in like middle school, I had the opportunity to like a ski club, and same thing with high school. So I found that was a really good way for me to continue to hang out with people that I enjoyed spending time with outdoors.
Grade 10, I had to take a mandatory geography class for high school, and my teacher in that class was extremely passionate about geography, specifically human geography, and reignited that spark in myself.
In high school, it was called like a leadership camp, which I was attending in like my first years, and then I ended up being like the director of it later on. It's outside. It's not so much environmental, but like it does get people outside. Like there's zip lining, there's like rock climbing. We would go like scavenging in the forest. We'd look for like birch, like bark, and then we had to like make our own fire. Huddling over the fire with my friends, like trying to make a fire out of like our surroundings.
And then later on, I took an outdoor education course, and it was kind of like an alternate gym class. So we would we'd go on a couple trips, like hikes up in Gatineau Park. We did a whitewater canoeing trip. They gave me more options, and it was again with the same people that I had created those friendships outside of different classes.
There was an 8th grade where we went to we had like a trip to a camp for a while. That was in the spring, and yeah, we did kind of do a bit of like outdoor activities and such.
Of the environmentally related classes you took, what do you remember most?
Generally, when it came to like geography in like grade 9, it was mostly about like maps and stuff like that. So it was very basic geography, I found.
As funny as it is, like I remember like literally coloring the map of like different provinces.
So it was a lot of like take care of nature, take care of the environment, don't litter. obviously like stuff about climate change as well. We're tied in.
So in one of these classes, we ended up watching documentaries on the fashion industry and then also the agriculture industry and how they relate to climate change.
A bit about like planning a city, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
They kind of like gamified it though. I think it was on the National Geographic website.
I think it was more project oriented rather than exam based, which was quite useful.
But I think maybe the biggest one was like the culture geography, where we kind of made a presentation on our culture. And so I'm German, and then one of my things to bring in was like Black Forest cake, which is like a traditional German cake, and I got to share with my classmates. Like when you think of geography, you kind of think of like, you know, maps, the world, like flags, maybe even like rocks and soils, but there's also like the cultural side where you're like sharing your identity and how people interact with, you know, the physical geography. That's what human geography is.
Is there anything that you would have changed about your environmental education?
Yeah, I would love to spend way more time outside.
Yeah.
I mean, even now in undergrad, like, I would love to just have the accessibility to go outside more.
More experiential learning, supporting teachers and their interests as well. And not everyone gets that opportunity.
For me, a geography student, I'm in my third year. I've had one field course, one experience with field work, and it was a very specific experience with field work relating to human geography.
It really promotes a better interest of like wellness, mental health, and well-being. There's a huge shift towards technology-based education, and I think that's a great asset. But I also think like being outside is a huge tool too.
It sucks that the only class that is available on campus for like that sort of outdoor experience costs a lot of money. And so to have the one course that takes you outside to cost so much money.
If you can provide that for everyone, then that's great. And if you can do it for the most marginalized, that's even better. So there's definitely an equity-based problem there.
A lot of environmental education focuses on online research and developing, say, essays, you know, assignments that just completely focuses on staying on your computer and looking up all these things online to come to a final assignment. I think that they could benefit a lot from, you know, real world implementations of these ideas.
I feel like there wasn't enough emphasis on different ways of learning. So I feel like there's opportunities nowadays to reform education.
Found that a lot of the assignments in that class had to do with looking up articles online, writing essays, and I found that for me, that type of learning really did not ignite my passion about the topic.
For the at-home aspect, like how to garden, how to know that you need flowers in a vegetable garden to pollinate, like understand like farming, agriculture, even just like at-home gardening. It like sustains life, is part of nature, and I feel like why don't we learn about that instead? Like even like animals, right? Like learning that milk comes from like pregnant cows.
Yeah, kind of just changing the message of what education can be.
So on that note,
Yeah.
what do you have you heard of forest schools?
I have not, no.
No, I have not. Are they similar to like scouts?
Not before taking the class. No.
Oh yeah, I have heard of forest
And
schools.
so tell me what you know about forest schools.
I'd heard it a couple times, but the most recent example that I'd heard was on the radio, CBC News. It was like a huge movement of like outdoor learning and like forest learning,
Outdoors, engaging outside and like learning about the nature,
mostly about like kids being outside.
but then also like just being outside on its own, learning different topics, engages you with the nature. So like you'll be sitting there learning about a topic that doesn't relate to environment, but you're in the environment, understand weather conditions, all just by like exposure.
I think that is a great idea.
I think it would be good for them. I think, especially now, you know, like trying to get the kids to go outside, right, instead of being inside all day.
That relates a lot to what I've been saying.
I feel like it should be implemented on a fairly mass scale, in the sense of like everyone should have the opportunity to participate in some form of outdoor schools.
Feel like I'm embedded in like the traditional educational setting, because that's like what has kind of always been and like what I had, and it's hard for me to like understand how you would learn like, you know, chemistry or physics outside.
And it would help these young kids realize that, you know, learning doesn't just have to be reading and writing. It can be hands-on.
Be something that would benefit all kids' mental health, anxiety, allowing them to disconnect from technology and really ground themselves and immerse themselves in green space and have an appreciation for it as well.
There's a lot of students who might not be able to comprehend a reading as well as others, might not be able to write as well as others, but still have this intelligence and this ability to perceive things.
I don't think it's impossible. I think it's very possible. I think it's like convincing the parents and the education board that it is a like phenomenal alternative to just like keeping students inside, you know.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for listening to my TED Talk.